I want to call out a few people as soon as I learn how to speak into this thing. We have 6 districts in Sandy Springs for those who are new to the city. District 1 is across the street on Roswell Road. That's John Paulson. And if you get in your car and you travel to what you think is South Carolina, that's still John Paulson. All you have to do is go down Spalding, and it never ends. District 2, where we are tonight. Dr. Melody Kelly sitting right in front of me. 3, Melissa Muller, a little bit further down Roswell Road. District 4, Jody Reichel, sitting right next to me. Tibby DiGiulio, I worked with for 30 years, and he said, did I ever come to your meetings at the office? I said, no, you didn't. He said, I'm not coming to tonight either. But Tibby is retiring, and he was one of the very first people in the city to get us started, and I salute Tibby. Andy Bauman is District 6, almost down to Atlanta, sitting up here on the stage. Here's a few people I want to address. Deborah Silcox, House District 53. Debbie, stand up wherever you are. There she is. Is Shay Roberts in the room? Well, she's District 52. Kendi Simone is, Ken, are you in the room somewhere? Probably not. I told him to stand outside and make sure no bad people get in here. He's the chief of the best police department in the city, in the state, in the South. And our chief of the fire department, Keith Sanders, he's not here either, I don't think, but thanks to Keith, he runs a great department. Bob Ellis is our Fulton County Commissioner of District 2. I don't think Bob is in the room, but his District 2 director, our Huntcliff District 2 former council member, Diane Freeze. I want to thank Pastor Joe Baker for making this facility available for all those looking to rent something. Joe, take a bow, my friend. I want to thank Steve Feldman, Grogan's Bluff HOA, for allowing me to spend his money. I want to thank Craig Gilchrist from Huntcliff HOA. Craig's right over here, and he helped put all this together, so thank to him. And above all, I got to thank my Sandy Springs Diner friends. Nick, are you still in the room? There he is back there. I eat 7 days a week there, and he brought us some refreshments. So when we break later, after the Q&A, you'll be able to meet the candidates, mingle with them, and have some food. Who are these people running for office? Well, I got Rusty Paul. He was elected mayor in 2014. He's seeking his 4th term. He and his wife, Jan, sitting right in front of me, have 5 adult children. They'd love for them all to live in Sandy Springs. Andy Bauman. Andy has served in Sandy Springs Council District 6 since 2013. He and his lovely wife, Deborah, have 2 children. Dr. Deborah. Dontaye Carter, a local public relations and media CEO. Dontaye is married to Karen Carter, who I'm told has delivered more people to Sandy Springs than anybody, over 1,000 babies in Northside. You get the award for that. And Jody Reichel, sitting right to my right, was elected to Sandy Springs Council in 2017, District 4. She and her husband Ken share 4 children who they hope will settle in Sandy Springs. Probably in your district too. Let's do this. I'm going to ask the 4 candidates to give me a few minutes of what they hope to do. I'll start with Dontaye and come around to Jody. So Dontaye, stand up and tell everybody what you're doing and what you plan to do.
Good evening, everyone. I wish my wife was going to be here tonight. She's currently over at Northside, adding to that number that you just mentioned. So I think she's close to 2,000 at this point. Really appreciate the work that she's done. For those that don't know me, I'm no stranger to Sandy Springs. My grandmother started in this city as a maid and as a nanny, and she took in a young girl who she adopted. That young girl later went on to serve in this nation, serve this country in the Army, and she met my father. I was born over in Frankfurt, West Germany, back in the 80s as that Cold War was ending. Fighting for our democracy, fighting for our cities, fighting for our nation is something that's been embedded in me. I've never shied away from standing up for our communities. It's a lot of what I did when I started my career in journalism. It's what I continued to do long after that first election, where I went back into our schools and I started doing the work, serving everywhere from school governance council to PTO, starting a mentorship program with the young boys there, to going on and even partnering with SSEF over at Sandy Springs Middle. What our community looks like is important to me. It's about taking care of the least of us so that we can make an impact for all of us. That's what I've done. I've been doing it for a long time. And what I'm here to fight for is fight for the issues that are impacting our community right now. The things such as housing. We have over 50 acres of undeveloped city-owned property here in Sandy Springs. It gives us an opportunity to do some things. Looking at more than just mixed use or tiny homes, but looking at a wide range of housing options. It's important to me that our children have safe places to go to, such as rec centers. These are things that we can do. It's important that as we're having these conversations, we're also looking at affordability and what that means for all of us. Our property taxes are currently up 33%. We can lower our millage rate and still afford to provide great services with our police and our fire. I think it's important to make sure that we are funding our police the way that they need to be funded, but also knowing that they're not the first stop. It's what we do on that front end that makes the biggest impact. I worked in the Fulton County DA's office, and I understand that each branch has its limitations. And so the next mayor is going to be crucial in deciding what these things look like and how we make sure that we impact this community for each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm Andy Bauman. I'm with my wife, Debbie, and her parents. We've lived here in Sandy Springs and worked here for the past almost 30 years. We've raised our children here. We attend synagogue here. We walk our dogs here. Debbie and I have built our lives here in Sandy Springs. I've worked as an attorney and a real estate professional in my career. And for the past 12 years, I've had the honor of representing my district on the Sandy Springs City Council. I'm running to be your mayor, a mayor for everyone in Sandy Springs, and not some people, not some neighborhoods, and not some part of the city, everywhere. I'm running to restore trust between the citizens and the mayor's office. To be a mayor who cares less about credit and more about getting the job done. My top priority is supporting our first responders and keeping our families and our neighborhoods safe. That's always been my top priority, and it always will be. This year, the city turns 20 years old, and we're at an inflection point. And I'm here to tell you what I've heard from all of you, is the status quo is just not good enough. I've knocked doors all across the city. I've visited neighborhoods. I've talked to neighbors and business persons, local business people like Nick, who don't feel seen and don't feel supported. I've heard your message loud and clear. All across the city, I'm hearing the same thing. It's time, and you deserve better.
Everybody, I want to thank, first of all, Gary and the team here to sponsor this. But more importantly, I want to thank you. You know, the great thing that I love about Sandy Springs is the passion that you have for your community. And when you have a large crowd like this show up, it just says that the most important thing about our community is the passion of our citizens and the quality of our neighborhoods. One of the things that is very important to me, and we'll all hear us talk about this, is public safety. Unless you're safe, nothing else matters. And so we've got the police headquarters. If you haven't been across the street to the new police headquarters, go over there. It is a crime-fighting department, and with all the technology and everything we need to not only solve crimes, but more importantly, help prevent them, which is the big part of being safe. Secondly, We need to make sure that we do the right kind of development. We could have filled up Roswell Road with apartments for the last 12 years, but I don't think that's what people up here want. So when you make development decisions, you make a 30, 40, 50-year decision. So you better know what you're doing. You better be careful about what you're doing, and you better think through what you're doing, because you can't undo what you've done once you make the decision. So I know that there's frustration, that it hasn't gone faster than we'd hoped it would be. But we've put a lot of effort into this community. Today I was on the phone with the Georgia Department of Transportation. We're about to redo the Dunwoody Place, Roswell Road intersection. We're going to take Roberts Road. We're going to pull it around behind a couple of buildings there and connect it to North River Parkway, put a red light there, realign the driveway for the office park, and make that area more functional and make it more adaptable to redevelopment. One of the things I want to do is create a tax allocation district. That is what we do when the appreciation of property goes up in this area. We take that extra money and we put it back into parks and infrastructure to make this more attractive for people who want to come in and invest. So we got a lot of work to do. We got water. Water, we were paying way too much for water. We finally got Atlanta. Eve, you talked about Eva. She and Tibby have been fighting for years. We took over that suit. We finally won in Superior Court to get not only the water rates lower to where they should be, but more importantly, when you turn on the tap, you want to make sure something comes out. And so we've got to make sure that the water system that's been underground for decades with no investment at all, that we make sure that when you go to that tap, you turn it on, that water, pure, clean, drinkable water actually comes out. So there's a lot of things that we've started that we've got to finish, and I would love to have your vote on November the 4th. Thank you.
Let me start by thanking Gary Alexander for putting this event together. And I want to thank my fellow panelists, Councilman Andy, Bauman, Mayor Paul, and Dontaye. Regardless of the outcome in November, I believe we all share a love for this city and want the best for Sandy Springs. I'm Jody Reichel, and I've lived in Sandy Springs for decades. I've raised my family here, and for the past 8 years, I've been on city council. Here's what sets me apart. I will not be a part-time mayor. I will be a full-time mayor focused solely on making Sandy Springs into a truly great city. I led the 9-year effort to secure North Springs High School, the largest investment in Sandy Springs since we built City Hall in 2017. And I am the only candidate pledging to lead the effort to create a Sandy Springs school district. While others say it's too difficult, I believe it is both possible and necessary. We've engaged one of Georgia's most respected education attorneys, Josh Belafonte, who confirms it can be done without changing the Constitution. Just as we did with North Springs High School, we are funding this work with our own money because it matters that much. This is a group called CLASS, Citizens for Local Area School Systems. We also funded an independent study, this was when we were doing the North Springs High School, that showed having our own Sandy Springs School District would save $50 million. This is something we must and should pursue. Good schools drive property values and attract families who build strong neighborhoods. And just like Eva Galambos never accepted impossible when she fought to create our city, I will not accept impossible when it comes to our schools. Housing is one of the greatest challenges facing Sandy Springs. We have 26,000 apartments. And that's more than Roswell, Alpharetta, and Johns Creek combined. Over half of our residents are renters, and about 70% of those apartments were built before 1990. That means aging buildings, outdated infrastructure and concentrated density that strains our schools, neighborhoods, and tax base. This isn't about being anti-apartments. This is about balance. A healthy city has a mix of renters and homeowners, families and seniors. Right now, too much of our land is tied up in complexes that need to be redeveloped into owner-occupied homes, mixed-use communities, and places where families and seniors can put down roots. And I will not support Section 8 style deals like PEDCORs, where millions in tax breaks went to lock in decades of subsidies with very little return for our community. This is not the future that we need for the North End or anywhere in Sandy Springs. Instead, I want to work with developers like Etty and Chaz Lazarian, who see the potential here and want to invest in the North End for the right reasons, to create walkable, vibrant communities with quality retail and dining. The North End is full of potential. With the right leadership, it can be a thriving part of our city, offering quality shopping, restaurants, and services that match the caliber of your neighborhoods. My goal is to make sure that this part of Sandy Springs isn't overlooked, but celebrated as a place families want to live, shop, and spend time. The North End deserves a mayor who will deliver results. I've already proven I can get big things done. North Springs High School is proof of that. I'm asking for your vote because I believe the North End should be a showcase for Sandy Springs, not an afterthought. Together, we can revitalize our housing, strengthen our schools, and build a community that reflects the best of who we are. Thank you.
I'm not running, but a fellow who did, Gabe Sterling in the back. Gabe, take a bow. He's one of the original Sandy Spring council people. He's also my new neighbor, again. We're going to have questions from the audience, but I have the mic, so I'm going to ask the first few. You know, in 1967, Mike Nichols produced a film called The Graduate. The next day, everybody was looking at each other saying plastics. So I'm going to help the audience here and the candidates. Plastic is not going to happen tonight, but apartments will. So what are your plans to develop the North End? Few of my questions. I'm going to start with that one. We'll get back to apartments in a second. This is for each candidate. I'm from Grogan's Bluff. And when you get the microphone, tell whether you're either from Huntcliff or Grogan's Bluff, because that's what we're going to take, and ask your question to one candidate or all four. And I'm starting off with all four of you. What are your plans to develop the North End? Dontaye, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to do, so for a second, Martise, can you stand up? Can you just stand up for a second? Wale, can you stand up for a second? I want to point out it's important to make sure that we're bringing people that live in the North End into these rooms to have these conversations. And there has not been a lot of that that's been happening. So I appreciate y'all showing up today and being here. But one of the first things that I want to do is create a housing advisory committee for the city. I believe that our residents need to have a voice in this process. And so too many times when I've gone to these meetings, when I look at the diversity of that room and who is coming in, there have been a lot of people that have not been in there. And it's important to make sure that we are extending a hand and bringing people into these conversations. It's important because the folks who have lived in the North End, I've knocked on a lot of apartment doors. These aren't people that just moved in and left. No, I spoke to a mom who's lived here for 28 years, whose children have gone to all our schools. These aren't people that have just come in 1 minute and left the next, and it's important that they also be a part of these conversations when we're talking about what the fabric of the community is going to look like. And so I'd love to go in about all the pretty ideas that I have with developers, but the reality is we got to bring the people who live here to the table so that they are letting us know what they want, because they've been the economic backbone of North End. Regardless of how we feel about what it is right now, they've been the economic backbone, and we got to continue to ensure that we're bringing all these voices to the table and making sure that we're getting a lot more people into these rooms to let us know what they want.
Thank you, Dante. Andy? Please.
Well, thank you. And that's the question of the evening up here is North End redevelopment. But let's start with the last 12 years. Under Mayor Paul's watch, thousands of apartments have been built and thousands of trees have come down. He says he wants 4 more years to finish the job, but the real job ahead of building a future with sustainable growth and strong neighborhoods, and that's a city that works for everyone. But let's talk about redevelopment in the North End. First, it's a matter of showing up, not just coming up in election years. I have a record in this particular area. In fact, we've seen redevelopment on the southern end of the city. When apartments have been redeveloped, you know what comes back? More apartments. We saw it at the Gateway Project down by the entrance to the southern end of Sandy Springs. Large apartment complex was torn down and more density came back with stores, Trader Joe's, restaurants, and the like. Another apartment complex came down in around 2016 or 17 on Franklin Road. What came back? More apartments, this time higher end, smaller units that really don't accommodate families, but they accommodate people in transition. So that's what's going to happen when we get redevelopment. It's just part of the economics. But we need to do more than that. Government can only do so much. Government can convene people. Government can work with land zoning and regulations. Government can remove obstacles. Government can create incentives. But government is not the developer. If somebody comes up here and says they're going to redevelop a property, they're selling you a bill of goods. That's not what's going to happen. We're going to have to work with developers, property owners, neighbors, local businesses. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table, and that's what I'll do as mayor. And in the meantime, because this is a very long process, and the current mayor's had 12 years. The job's never finished. We're going to start by restoring the pride in Sandy Springs on the North End. And I think as a down payment to the North End, we need to start having city-sponsored festivals and events in this community. Everything has been happening at the city center. It sucked the oxygen out of the room. I've spoken with local business owners, property owners, and why can't we have a festival, for example, for the World Cup up here on the North End? I started the farmers market in Sandy Springs 15 years ago, before there was anything at the city center. It demonstrated how we could bring a place to life. We could have a mini market on weekday evenings up here in Sandy Springs. We need to make the North End the talk of the town, and we can start by paying attention to it. So I am committed to doing that. We're going to have short-term benefits. We're going to have long-term benefits. But we're not the developers. We can lay the foundation for it. And the truth of the matter is we need housing for everybody at every stage of their life and at all income levels. Because if you go to a restaurant like Taco Mac down at the Prado right now, the restaurant's half empty. And you wait 30 minutes. Why is that? Because people can't afford to live here, and we need people to work to support our local businesses. So the North End requires more than just platitudes. It requires showing up, and it requires experience. And I'm going to leave with one last thing, Gary. Just my private background in real estate is delivering home ownership. I was fortunate to be part of a company that was acquiring rental properties and converting them to home ownership, called condominium conversion. In my career, we did about 2,000 of those units, including 150 right here in Sandy Springs before there was a Sandy Springs. It's called the Arbors at Sandy Springs, just south of Spalding, between Abernathy and Spalding. And nothing gave me greater pleasure after we bought that deal and we converted it to home ownership than to going to a closing and meeting with a single mom or a young couple that was buying their first home right here in Sandy Springs and building roots. They were building equity. So a lot of people can talk about this, but I've actually done that. I've worked with developers. I'm a lawyer. I know how to get this done, but let's be really, really honest. It's going to take time, it's going to cost money, and it's going to require compromise. And somebody needs to put all of the parties at the table in the room, starting with you, the neighborhoods. And I'm going to be able to do that because I'll show up on day one, the morning after I take office as mayor. I'll meet people at the Sandy Springs Diner. We'll roll up our sleeves and we'll get to work.
Thank you, Andy. Rusty?
Well, it's interesting. You're going to hear me invoked in a negative way a lot tonight, and that's the way politics is. But what they forget is that they've been there at the table for the last 8 and 12 years too. So they bear responsibility for the things that have and have not happened. But there are some things that have happened, and some of you in this room participated. You remember when we went out and studied the 4 shopping centers in this area? You were part of that conversation. You were in the room when we did that. Those plans were based on what you told us you wanted for your community. And so we put those out there. And one of the developers, one of the owners up here, decided to do it. It was down here at Stream at the North River Shopping Center. They bought that. They took that plan that you put all the input into and said, we want to build it. But there was one problem, interest rates. They couldn't get the financing at the rate they could make it work. They held on, they held on, they held on, and held on for years. And finally, they had their capital tied up so long that they had to sell it. Got a new developer in there. We want to work with him to do, I've already told him, I said, we want to build exactly what Stream wanted to build there, which was shops and townhomes and some rental, yes, because we do have, that's what the economics are right now. So, and then we're going to continue working on that. But when that fell apart, we have to come up with a new approach to doing it. One of the things that we can do is called tax allocation districts. That's where we take the increase of value in the commercial district as it grows, and we take that money and we allocate it to parks, and we allocate it to infrastructure, and we have resources that we can sit down with developers and make these things happen. We thought they were going to do it on their own. We were going to participate with it, but now we need the resources, and we can't take all the money out of the budget. You want to hear talk about buying apartments at $100 million apiece? Then how do we pay for police? How do we pay for fire? How do we pay for all the other services that you want? We have to think these things through. It's easy to sit up here and give platitudes and generalizations about a school system that we can create when the Constitution of Georgia caps the number of school systems. Why use a pipe dream when you can do a parent-directed charter school today? That's what the folks at Spalding Elementary are doing right now. They are putting together, they already hired the company to do it, and they're putting that together. That can be done today. Deborah Silcox will tell you that can be done today because she helped pass the law to get it done. Those are practical things that can be done today. We don't have to wait. If we had created the city, if we had to change the Georgia Constitution to create the city of Sandy Springs, we'd still be Fulton County. So let's be real. Let's be practical. A tax allocation district, those plans are still there. They still work. Hopefully the Fed will reduce interest rates and we can get some things going. But that's the plan. You take a tax allocation district, gives the city the resources we need to make it work, and then we can come in with resources to sit down. We're not sitting down at the table with developers begging. We're coming to the table with money and assets that we can say, if you'll do this, we can make this happen. We didn't think we'd have to do that. We thought Stream was going to do what they needed with the private sector. Didn't work, so we got to go to Plan B, and that tax allocation district's what I want to do.
I'm so glad I went after you because that was some good stuff I've got. So he says that why couldn't I do anything for 8 years, or why haven't I done the thing? So I'll tell you why. And this is about the school district. And EVA did change the Constitution, and a charter school cannot be done in today.
Hey, folks,
Okay. Anyway,
go to your rooms.
I'm not scared to do the hard work, okay? But this is the thing. We have done a lot to try to get a new school district. We are working towards that because we could potentially save millions of dollars, have better schools, pay our teachers more. It's all good. But you know what happened? I actually had a meeting this week with Scott Hilton, who's one of the legislatures, and I called him. He said, yes, let's meet on Friday. And then the next day he sends me a message saying, you know what, let's wait till November, okay? And when I asked Rusty probably a year ago about a school district, and he said it can't be done. But you know what else he did? He went to Chris Carr, he went to Deborah Silcox, he went to Scott Hilton and Jan Jones, and he blocked me from talking to them about the new school district. And that's why I haven't gotten a lot done in Sandy Springs, because I don't have the support of my mayor. But back to your question. So all you have to do is drive out on Roswell Road, and you can go north or south on Roswell Road, and you can look and see what's out there. There's shuttered stores, there's empty lots, it's bad. There's no development, and there's a lot of apartments. Like I said before, we have 26,000 apartments in Sandy Springs and 2,000 more apartments coming. I am not scared to say that I want to redevelop some of these apartment complexes that are taking up hundreds of acres of our land. These apartments, 70% of them were built before 1990. Apartments weren't meant to last forever. They need to be redeveloped. We need more owner-occupied housing in Sandy Springs. There's one development that's right down the street that I've been talking about for a long time. I tried to get Rusty to go there with me. He wouldn't even go there with me, okay? It's 125 acres. There's 760 apartments on them, and 100 of them are vacant. That's twice the size of the Battery. Can you imagine that? And it's on the river, and we actually even put our trails in that apartment complex. And again, it's been around for a long time. It doesn't pass a lot of our code enforcement tests, and it needs to be redeveloped. And I will do that using a private-public partnership the same way that our city was started, and that's how I intend to get things done in the North End.
All right, Gary. Hey,
Thank
Gary.
you, Jody.
Gary. Can we just have another short round on North End redevelopment, because it's such a big topic? Can we just have a quick response?
Quick response.
Do you want to go first, Dante? We'll do it quick.
Quick, we're talking.
Go. Start. We're always starting at your end.
You know, I've sat back and I've kind of listened to much of the dialogue here. I think one of the things that we have to be honest about is, you know, we got two city council members up here that at any point, while they've been in office at least the last 8 years, could have called a specially called meeting. It's in our charter. If you look in our charter, you'll see that at any point, they could have called a meeting, and they didn't, which is why, to Mayor Paul's credit, he keeps saying, they've been there the whole time with me, voting alongside with me, and not doing anything different. The reality is we've got to engage our folks in the North End. You all are here, and I'm appreciative that you all are here. But we all know Sandy Springs is a big city. It's not the same size city it was when you all founded it. And so with that comes unique challenges that we have to address. And that's, if we're honest, that's what slowed down developing the North End, is the people that need to be in the room helping us to guide these conversations aren't there. There's only one person on this stage that's been in the schools on the North End, week after week after week, working with not just the kids, but their parents. There's only one person on this stage that lives in the North End that's asking about what is this going to look like, not just for me, not just for my daughter, but the young families that are moving into the area. There's drastic changeover that's happening in our city. I think we have to do a better job in the city of recruiting these young families to come and have this conversation with us, because they're as much a part of the fabric as everybody else is. And I think that's a huge part of this equation that's missing. And we have to just be honest about what's going on. Everybody keeps talking about tearing down apartments and this, that, and the third. Yes, we know the process is long. We all know that. But what resources outside of city council are we looking at? What partnerships with Fulton County are we looking at? Riverside Park, right up here on Roswell, right, is a partnership between Fulton County and the city of Roswell. Fulton County has a ton of money from us that we've already paid from our tax money. Why aren't we looking at partnerships on that end? Why aren't we looking at strengthening those relationships so that we can actually make these things happen? We're having a whole lot of conversations, and we know that there are parts within this conversation where it's not just a city of Sandy Springs issue, it's a Fulton County, it's a state, it's a federal issue. There are multi-layers to this, and I think we got to do a better job of making sure that we're having that conversation across the board.
Thank you, Dontaye.
Thank you, Dontaye. So, yes, I have been on the council for the past 12 years, and I've represented the southern part of this city where I've developed a reputation for great constituent service. People who haven't even voted for me in the past have acknowledged that. I'm responsive, I send emails, I take care of business. But there's a big difference between being mayor and being on the city council. We're one of 6 votes. A council member can deliver sidewalks and green space just like I've done for my district. I've still shown up here, but a mayor sets the vision, drives investment, and this is the key. This is the key. Accepts accountability. It's easy to accept credit. It's easy to accept credit. A true leader accepts responsibility, and that's exactly what I'll do as mayor. I will accept responsibility. Look, folks, this was not my first act. It will not be my last act. Mayor Paul has had a career in politics. He got first elected to the Stone Mountain City Council in 1977. 1977. That was the year that I was in 7th grade. He's had a career in politics, lobbying, in Sandy Springs. He's had his turn. We can do better. You deserve better. And that's what I'm here to offer to the citizens of Sandy Springs. Steady, ready leadership. Take the things we do well, keep doing them, but get on point. I don't need 4 terms to do this. I don't want 4 terms to do this. I'll take a term, I'll do my best. I'll take another term if the citizens want that and I'm healthy, and then we'll move on. Because leadership also knows when to pass the baton, when to hand off the torch. That's exactly what you deserve, and it's time.
Thank you, Andy. Rusty, one rebuttal.
You're going to hear a lot of conversation trying to make you think that Sandy Springs is a bad place to live. And I don't believe that. And I don't think you believe that. Even with all the challenges we've got on the north end, this is a great place to live. You've got great neighborhoods up here. Do we have work to do? Yes. But look at what we have done. We've just built the new trail system. Have you been along the Springway? Have you seen that? Amazing, amazing use of the natural resources of this area. Yes, we need some more restaurants. We need to see more people eating at Nick's restaurant too to help, because when you make the restaurants in your area successful, that brings in more. We've got an opportunity with the tax allocation district to get the resources to help kickstart some of these things. But don't let anybody convince you or try to convince you that this is a bad place to live. It is not. You people are too smart to live in a place that is a bad place. You got options. You could move. You love this place. It's important to you. That's why you're here tonight. You want to make it better. You have the passion to be able to get it done. And so with the ideas of the tax allocation district, we tried several things. We continue to work those. Those plans are still in place. They're still got your input. They got your input and your signature on them. We can still make that happen when the market turns. But I don't think you want any more apartments up here. Am I wrong? All right. So let's be a little patient to get what we want rather than trying to rush in and just develop for the sake of development. A little patience, letting the interest rates come down a little bit is going to give us the opportunity to create the rest of the great part of this community that exists.
Thank you, Jody. See, this is a meet and greet. It's not a debate. So I don't want to go. We could do this all night long. I've got more questions. No. Okay, then you
I've
guys
got a
keep
lot to
talking.
say.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't think that Sandy Springs is a terrible place to live. I've never said that, but I don't want you to confuse convenience of Sandy Springs with Sandy Springs being a great place to live, because if I don't know when the last time you were at Woodstock, Roswell, or Alpharetta, because they are great places to live. They have great homes. They have great amenities. So you can believe we're the number 4 city of this and that and the other. And you know, those statistics come from magazines in Pennsylvania. I do think we're a great place to live. We've got a lot of work to do. But the interest rates, you know, I've heard him talk about interest rates before, but the thing is that he's been mayor since 2014, when we have the lowest interest rates in history, and we have not been able to develop hardly anything since 2014. So I'm not going to come up with excuses. I got a new North Springs High School, which was a $180 million investment in Sandy Springs. And I don't take no. I am going to figure out a way and find a way to get things done. One of my gifts, I believe, is that I surround myself with people that get things done. And I'm going to call on all of you and people in Sandy Springs to help me realize the vision that we all have for Sandy Springs.
Thank you. Okay, I'm putting apartments in the back drawer right now. There's something that affects all of us up here. We are planning a Roswell Boulevard. So says my council. Does any of you guys want to talk to me what Roswell Boulevard's going to be? Anybody? Want to grab that?
I can tell you the meeting I was in today with the Georgia Department of Transportation that is just came out today. One, that is, I mentioned it in my opening remarks, they're going to take Roberts Drive, they're going to bring it around behind some of those office buildings down there and connect it into North River Parkway and put a red light there so that people who live on Roberts Drive and in that area don't have to, the largest number of wrecks we have in the city that's one of the places. Secondly, they're going to take Dunwoody Place, that intersection. They're going to build trails along Roswell Road that will connect into our trails network. And once we get Diane Freese's bridge across the river, it'll connect into that trail network too. That was $18 million that I was able to get from the Atlanta Regional Commission to put right here in this community to make the infrastructure better, to make the traffic better, and make this area more developable. Those are the kinds of contacts that I have to be able to do. When they hit the Mount Vernon Bridge, within 2 hours I was on the phone with the Department of Transportation scheduling to get that bridge accelerated so it'd get done. They talk about how long I've been here. Yep, I've been doing this for a while. But my Rolodex is much fatter than theirs, and they haven't really invested in building that same kind of connections that bring the resources into this community that make a difference. We can't do it all. I don't want to take all the money out of your pockets to do everything that has to be done. We've got resources at the federal and state level that I know how to go get. And so that's when we're talking about the Roswell Boulevard, the money in that $18 million I got from that is mostly federal but some state will help begin that process right here at North River Shopping Center.
I. That's what we hear. This election is not about us, it's about you. It's about all of you. It's about this community. Again, a great leader knows that the credit will come, but you need to be willing to accept accountability, responsibility, and the willingness to acknowledge where things can be improved. I've been proud to serve with Rusty for the past 12 years, but we need to move on. It's time to move on. Listen, the role of mayor, we are a council manager form of government. We hear Councilwoman Reichel talking about, I surround myself with good people, I. Rusty talking about I. We have a city council. Look what's happening here. You have 2 sitting city council members that have decided to take the leap and challenge an incumbent mayor who has served for a lifetime. This is no easy task, okay? This is no easy task. As mayor, it will be we. It will be the council. It will be our staff. It will be working with the other governments. I have a Rolodex too, okay? And this is a job that requires we and pulling resources together, and especially working with your colleagues on the Sandy Springs City Council, because there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of connections and there's a lot of different viewpoints. And so this is all about you. That's why I'm running, to serve you and to make this community better for you. As for the Roswell Road Boulevard, Gary, I think there's a great business book. It's called Start With Why. Why are you doing something? You don't just do something to do it. We need to ensure, I don't know all of the details. There's been a lot of plans. We've got tons of plans, and I've dug into it a little bit. But before we start spending your money on the details, we need to make sure this works for Nick in the Sandy Springs Diner. We need to make sure this works for Chaz and Etty at their development to create better access. So we have to start with why. Because sometimes, listen, it's not enough to spend to keep our taxes low and have a AAA rating. That's not all that's at issue. How do we spend our money? Do we spend it wisely? Do we get good value for your money? Do we get good customer service at City Hall? This is more than just, government as usual. We need to return to the Sandy Springs way of doing everything as efficiently and smartly and as collaboratively as we possibly can. As mayor, I'll do that. I'll work with all of you. I'll work with the council colleagues, and I'll work with everybody in the region to get it done.
Well, I don't have a Rolodex. I've got my cell phone, but we have become a road and bridges city. I mean, the north end or the boulevard. I'm sure it's a great project, but I don't know about you. I'm tired of all the construction in Sandy Springs. I want real changes. We have one soccer field in Sandy Springs. We have 108,000 people, and we have one soccer field in Sandy Springs. We have a 50-year-old tennis center in Sandy Springs. And we have old gas stations. We have, like I said before, shuttered buildings and empty lots. So I'm sure that the boulevard will be great if we do it, but there's so many more other things that I have in mind or that I plan to do when I become mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
I'm sorry, Gary. I let them all talk, I just sat back, I have been going first the whole time, and I just thought it was important to listen,
Talk to me
It's,
what
it's
does the
something
Roswell Boulevard mean to you?
Well, before we get into what Roswell Boulevard means to me, before we go there, I want to remind y'all again what the Sandy Springs City Charter says. It says that any city council person can go and collect their votes and hold a specially called meeting, right? So I'm seeing a lot of energy on this stage tonight. And the reality is if they cared about it, they would have been talking about it 4 years ago and 8 years ago, and they would have been holding meetings, publicly held meetings, that each and every one of you all could have been at to discuss these issues. They didn't do that. The reason they didn't do that is because they didn't care, right? They didn't care, and that's facts. The only reason these two are running is because Rusty was shown to be vulnerable last election cycle. And everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen. So when we talk about Boulevard, right? Roswell Boulevard, I'm going to go back to the part of having conversations within the community, the entire community, because that's what this is about. Development is slow because everybody's not at the table and we're fighting against the will of the community. That's the reality of what's happening right here. We can talk about money. We can talk about getting resources from here. We can talk about Rolodexes. We can talk about all these things. But if the people that make your city what it is aren't at the table, there's going to be conflict. And that's just the reality. The city of Sandy Springs has a very large working class population. We all see it, but they don't have adequate public transportation here. We got to have a conversation with our county, with MARTA about what that looks like. And I know it's going to make some folks feel uncomfortable, but the reality is when your city grows, you have to look at these things, and you have to have real conversations about what these things look like. We got to talk about housing and what that looks like, because on Roberts Drive, we got a lot of folks who own townhomes over there who want to get a return on their investment as well. So we just got to be real and making sure that we're having these folks at the table so that we can talk about it. Because when I get out here and I'm talking to folks, they're not just talking about playgrounds and rec centers. Like, they want those things too. But what do they want? They want to see a return on their investment. The same way we have all seen our property values shoot up, and we know that we're going to get a return. There are many people in our community who are having these conversations, and we just need to make sure that we're inviting as many people to the table as possible. Thank you.
So I'm listening to these guys. I worked for 50 years at Wells Fargo, and the chairman came to visit me, looked at my desk and said, "I can't believe you still have a Rolodex." That's my sentiment to the board. Okay. We have some people in the audience who have questions, and do I have people with mics somewhere around there? Raise your hand, tell us where, well, we know where you live.
Hi, Craig Gilchrist, Huntcliff. And I've got a question for the candidates, and I'm certain the first thought may be, well, City Hall can't do anything about that. But I want to know from you what resources and how you can activate your Rolodexes to maybe make a difference. And that's about really, I think, one of the most valuable assets that we have, which is the Chattahoochee River. Now, because of sedimentation, you know, whether it's from runoff further north or for any other reason, the river's getting shallower. Our common properties of Huntcliff flood multiple times a year. We have folks who are fortunate enough to live on the river, and they used to have a riverfront, and now they have a marsh in front of them instead of a river. And what's really important to me is that is threatening Overlook Park, which is the crown jewel of our park system. So what are your thoughts about the health of the river, and is that on the radar? For those of you who've been in office, is that on the radar for you know, our city and the future of Overlook Park, and really the condition and the health of that valuable asset that we have?
Sure, Craig. It's the lifeblood of this whole region. It's not just Sandy Springs. The challenge about the river is it's federally controlled. The Corps of Engineers, there's 2,500 feet away from the center line of the river that is restricted from development. If you can find in history that it has been used for any commercial activity, then you can get it grandfathered in for usage for development on the river. But there's only the only thing we've been able to find through the years is an old wagon road that goes down on this bank of the river, which we could possibly be able to use to provide more access. If you care about the river, and I think we all do, we're the largest metropolitan area with the smallest water resource in the nation. If you care about the river, you've got to give people access to it. You just can't have them drive over it all the time. It's one of the reasons why we built the Overlook Park. One of the reasons why we built the Springway. We're trying to engage people with the river, so it's more than just something that's a barrier to try and get across. It's something that's a real asset to our community. Doing the same thing at Riverside, the old Riverside Park area, to try and give people access to the river. And you do have a problem there with flooding, with the farm, and with the animals and the property you own there. John Paulson's done a lot of research right now looking at all those properties in there. Georgia Power owns a big strip through there, and he's had some conversations with Georgia Power and with Huntcliff to be able to maybe piece those together in a way that we can do something a little bit more constructive than we've been able to do to this point.
Thank you very much. May I suggest
Wait,
you put that in writing to
can I
whoever
say
you're
something?
directing that to? Thank
I'm learning something tonight, so thank you. I did not know that we had these issues, unfortunately. I mean, I know that this is Chattahoochee is one of our best assets, and I would like to figure out how to activate it in a way like I run along the river in Cobb County and I run along the river in Roswell. But if I could get your number, I'd love to come and take a look at it this week. I'll meet you at your house and you can show me, and we'll see what we can do. What is it called?
Behind my neighborhood, Jody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Steve?
No, can we respond, Gary? Maybe we've been asked a couple of questions. They asked all the candidates.
Let me get to, we got a lot of people here.
Well,
Steve?
I think they want to hear from us on environment. I'd like to just say a word about the environment, if I might, Gary. So thank you for that question. Thank you for both of you. I actually do know about this. I know very much about the river, and I know the problems. I've been the one that have been talking about our deer population, the only candidate up here that's talked about trees. With development, we do lose thousands of trees, and it's a big issue in our community. It's a big issue in our community. And Dontaye likes to talk about special meetings. When I first got on council, I don't know if Gabe Sterling, is he still here? Gabe? Gabe will remember that back in 2015 and 16, we worked very closely together on 3 big issues for the city that we need to continue to work on: stormwater, tree canopy, and erosion control. Spent a lot of staff time and a lot of resources on that. Let's talk about trees. The city is one of the biggest cutter of trees of anybody in this community. Now, we do need to do that at times. We need to cut trees for our public works projects. You talk about the trade-off on road projects. But do you know what's true? We don't hold our city to the same standard of the tree ordinance that we hold developers. And I propose that the city hold itself to the same standards that we hold developers. That means if you cut a tree, you have to pay into the tree fund. If a private developer wants to build a house, when I built my house, we actually spent a lot of money saving trees, but I had to pay into the tree fund for a tree that I might have had to remove. The city can do the same thing. It's just a matter of how we choose to spend our money. We can then use that money to replant in those very projects, but we need to hold ourselves to the same standard. We had a citizen in our city, Josh Marks, come beg us to take a stand on the Okefenokee down in southeast Georgia. And we had some conversation about it, and the mayor actually spoke about it as well. But the environment is a city issue, and the mayor and your council need to see the environment as a city issue. We need to lead the way, not follow the way. We need to be smart how we do it. I agree. We need to activate the river where we can. Look what happened in Chicago. Anybody been to Chicago and taken the architectural tour? Right. You know that that city turned its back on the river for all those generations. And then when they figured out a way to engage the river, to clean the river, they have found a way to work in harmony with the river. In Sandy Springs, our trees, our canopy, our river, these are all our greatest assets. It's why people want to live here. So we need to embrace that. We need to be willing to have a conversation about that. The tree ordinance is a very complicated item, but that doesn't mean we don't address the issue. There's a balance. If you want redevelopment, people that want affordable housing have to recognize that there's going to be some trees that are cut to do it, right? Like with very small lots, sometimes you have to cut trees. Listen, half of the people that reach out to us complain it's too easy to cut a tree, and half of the people complain it's too hard to cut a tree. Like so much else, we need to strike a balance in how we approach this. So Craig, the river is a big priority for us. Our parks are a big priority. But we need to choose how we spend our money. The city built a veterans park. I'm very proud of that, supporting our veterans. My father was a veteran. My stepfather was a veteran. But where we put it, I disagreed with. Councilwoman Reichel disagreed as well. We spent millions and millions of dollars on that park, which is really a plaza that very few people can get to. It looks pretty, but imagine if we took those millions of dollars and invested them in Morgan Falls Overlook Park or invested them in Hammond Park. Again, we're going to balance our budget every year. That's what we do, being fiscally conservative. We're going to maintain a AAA bond rating. And Dontaye, if we cut our millage rate, we jeopardize that. But we have a chance to decide how we spend our money. It's not enough that we keep our taxes low. It's how we choose to spend our money, how we allocate our money, and these are really two good examples of where we should be focused on spending the money in the right way. So thank you both for your question.
Hey, wait.
Okay.
Dontaye,
Yep.
if you talk more than a minute, I'm going to kill you. I've got
I'll
this
keep it
lady
short.
had her hand up for a half hour.
I'll keep it. What's your name, ma'am? I'm sorry. Yes. Cindy, thank you so much for stepping up and speaking. I think the points that Sydney brought up are exactly why we got to have these types of conversations within the community. What it's showing is that the needs of the community, various parts of our community, I think a lot of times I talk about diversity and inclusion, and folks automatically run to this as a race thing, and it's not. It's an issues thing. It's about the things that impact us all. You brought up a great point. And if we're really trying to solve these issues, we got to work together. You're not going to get an answer from just any one of these four up here, right? You've already said that you've emailed everybody. Collectively, we have to get together and work on coming up with a strategy on how we work with the Corps of Engineers to get these things done. That's the reality. And mayors need to be the advocates to get these things done. There's three places where change comes from in this country. It's the president, the governors, the mayors. The mayors have to play an active role in these things. So that's all I'll say. I'll wrap it up, keep it short.
30 seconds. I want to. All right, 30 seconds.
I'm going to take a Rolodex away.
I've been accused of talking about I, so I'm going to talk about he. And this is what the power of one council member who's dedicated to doing something. John has gone along. He's identified all the property owners along that area where that problem exists. He's figuring it out and talking to all the landowners in there, trying to come up with a solution. He's met with me twice to be able to try and figure it out. He's taking the lead on it. He's taking the initiative. He's identified the property owners. He's already in the process of meeting. First, the biggest property owner in there is Georgia Power. We got to get them to sign on first. So John has taken on the responsibility as the council member up here to try and get that done. He's just been working on it for a little over a month when he found out what the problem was, and he's working on it. That's what council members can do too.
Thank you, Rusty. Steve, please.
Good evening. I moved to Grogan's Bluff 2 years ago, and my daughter and son-in-law live in Sandy Springs and recently bought a house here. And one of the issues that they had in finding a house was they had to factor in private school costs for the most part. And so I am interested to hear that there's some talk potentially by at least one candidate about coming up with Sandy Springs School District. I came from a town outside Houston that built its whole town around a great school system. And so I do think that that would be a benefit here. I share the concern about stormwater in the Chattahoochee. I'm not sure that it was drained so much as it filled up with silt and runoff from erosion. So I'm very concerned about that issue as well. But Sandy Springs was founded, as I understand it, on a public safety issue. So I've heard some of you talk about backing public safety and fire and police, but what specifically is your level of support for the Sandy Springs PD?
Thank you very much. Dontaye, you want to start at that end?
Back to me now. I'm the only candidate on stage that's actually worked for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. largest DA's office in the state of Georgia. Only one up here that's had to look at how these laws are applied and the impact that they have across the board. I mention that to say I have full support in our Sandy Springs Police Department, but I also think that we have to be clear in understanding that police, they stop crime, they arrest suspects, but there are things that we need to do on the front end to be proactive. Building a rec center so that our children have safe places to go, so that they have places where they can engage without the distractions of what goes on outside. And I think one of the biggest ways that we saw that there is a disconnect between our city and the community was that fentanyl drug bust that we had and the amount of fentanyl that was moving through this city. That's a problem for me. I got a 7-year-old daughter. I don't want her anywhere near this, right? And so we got to be proactive in how we deal with these things. It's not enough to just say, I support the Sandy Springs Police Department when we're not assisting them on the front end to ensure that we are putting every measure in place to keep crime from happening on the front end.
Thank you, Dontaye. Rusty?
I served as a director of public affairs, and so I worked in all the court cases. I had to send out all the press releases. I had to sit down on all the calls. I had to sit down as attorneys were making decisions on how to prosecute cases. I was there when we had a rise in child abuse cases at home because of how parents were disciplining their child. And we had to have a whole communication within the community about, hey, this may have happened when you were younger, but this isn't how you discipline their child. And so when I'm talking about how these laws are applied, a lot of these things I saw firsthand, and that's the experience I'm bringing to the table.
I'm going to let Jody go first. Go ahead.
I think I can speak for all three of us or four of us that we support our police 100%, our first responders, and we're always going to give them the resources they need to keep us safe. We all supported their new house, and we're very proud of that, as Rusty said earlier. I want to speak about the schools. I just want to tell you just a little bit more about it. So we're the only state in the nation where you have to change the Constitution to add an independent school district. And that was put in our Constitution in 1945. So we're being held hostage by a law that is 80 years old. Now, we have found through Josh Belafonte ways to change it without changing the Constitution, but I am not as scared to try to change the Constitution. The Constitution has been rewritten 11 times, and it has been amended over 70 times. So if that's what it takes to get us a new school district or our own Sandy Springs School District, I will do it. And I will tell you that I've already met with mayors from Johns Creek, from Roswell, from Dunwoody, from Brookhaven, from East Point, Palmetto, Union City, mayors from all over that they also want their own school system. To me, that is the number one thing that I will be doing on my agenda and it's not an I, and I'm not an I person. For those that know me, I'm not an I person. I'm a we person. And we, the cities for the schools, will get that done. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, I agree with Jody. There's not a single person on council who hasn't stood up and funded the most beloved institution in this town, our police officers. I was at Jay Christopher's this morning. That's the safest place in the middle part of the city because they're all eating there. You know why? Because one of you is going to pick up their breakfast, and they know that. So, no, they have our full support. They have everything they need from us. Every member of council and I have fully funded and would continue to be able to do that. I'll respond to what Jody said about the schools. I support a school system. I support our own. If we could do it, I'd be out leading the band. But why go through the most difficult process when there's a simple process of having parent-directed charter schools? You can do that right now. No change in the Constitution. Doesn't take a law change. It just takes a group of parents who get together and say, we want to start our own school for our own kids and be directed by the parents. That seems to me to be a much better solution than fragmenting the whole Fulton County school system when we've got some really, really, really good schools in this county and in this city. Why blow it all up when you can solve the localized problems through a state charter school?
Well, two questions, schools and police. So on the school issue, Jody referenced a 2018 feasibility study. You can see it online. I contributed money to that, as you recall, in 2018. And the North Springs High School, Jody and Betty Klein, Linda Trickey, and others did an amazing job, but let's make sure we're clear that there was a pause in that. And then people like Jen Lott and current parents also stepped up, and their efforts need to be recognized. On public safety, yes, I echo the response. Nothing unites our community more than support for our first responders. I think across the political spectrum, all communities support our first responders. They literally can't pay for their own meal in many restaurants around here, and they have my full support. My support for them goes way back before I was on council. As the founder of the Sandy Springs Farmers Market in 2010, 9/11 fell on a Saturday, and to recognize, I can't believe it's 15 years ago, it was the 9th anniversary, to recognize that moment, the farmers market sponsored, might be politically incorrect right now to call it a guns and hoses chili cook-off, where we brought together the police and the fire departments. Whole Foods donated all of the goods. We had a really great time and raising money for our, Dontaye, for our police benevolent fund. And Eva Golumbos was there, and we had a pop-up opera from serenading John Golumbos. The point of this is it's all about community, and building community policing is critically important. But we do have crime here. As was referenced, the biggest drug bust in the state's history occurred this year, not in a poor, low-income apartment. It happened in a high-income apartment. In my own neighborhood on the southern part of Sandy Springs, a place where, listen, let's just be honest, a place where teardowns at this point, I couldn't afford there now. Teardowns cost $700,000. Let that sink in. We had a drug bust of weed growers in the house that actually we would have guessed which house would have been that. It was this house. But it was fortuitous that the police were able to find them. And there was a bust in my neighborhood. That house has since been condemned and torn down. So the work we do together is critical. On the school, we can go down this rabbit hole. I absolutely support it. I'm working with the charter parents. But a mayor really needs to not be drugged down all of these rabbit holes. We should absolutely be supportive of this if it can be done. But we have a lot of issues here. And on crime, we've got a big issue with Fulton County. And as mayor, I'll spend my time trying to advocate for fixing the broken Fulton County criminal justice system that does catch and release. People get caught and they get released. We saw that happen in Charlotte just recently, 14 times, and that poor woman got murdered on that subway. So we have issues we need to fix right here in Sandy Springs and right here in Fulton County, and that will have my full attention as mayor.
Go ahead, Steve.
Ask a question. I'm president of the Grogan's Bluff HOA. I want to thank everyone for coming. My question is, I think it was hit upon this. Almost every family in my neighborhood has to send their kids to private school. There's almost nobody that goes to public school. Ison Elementary is one of the worst elementary schools in the county. Sandy Springs Middle is not much better. So that is something that my neighbors have to put into their cost of owning a home in my neighborhood because the school is that bad. So we talk about long-term fixes. I appreciate that, Jody, about coming along, wanting to change the state constitution. What kind of short-term fixes can we do today to get Ison Springs Elementary up to par so kids don't have to go to Hertz Ferry, have to gerrymander the system, or have to go to private school to be able to get a decent education in our area?
Steve, who is that directed to?
Excuse me?
You want that directed to all or one?
Yes, please.
Okay. Dontaye, go ahead.
Okay. There's been a conversation about the Constitution, changing it. And I just want to bring back the historical context of this. When that Constitution has been changed, when there have been amendments, it has been during a time of war, civil war, all these different things that have occurred. And so I think that's when we talk about how hard it is to get these things done, I think it's important to make sure that we have that context. Second, we're talking about short-term fixes. I had the gentleman stand up who came in earlier because they helped me with the Super Dads program up at Dunwoody Springs. Ice and Springs, they reached out about help there. I know for a long time, they didn't even have a PTO board. And so it's going to take parents getting involved, getting their hands in. And I know it's tough. It's believe me, I can pull my kid out of Dunwoody Springs and we're gonna be okay. We'll be fine. But I have to consider the community if I'm truly going to protect my daughter, if I'm truly going to make sure that she's in the community that I love growing up the way I need her to grow up. That's just the reality. And I know it's a tough conversation to have, but we got to talk about how we engage and how we get involved, how we show up on these PTO boards, how we show up on these school governance councils. Last year, I served as the vice chair of the school governance council over at Dunwoody Springs. We had $40,000 left over. Our school governance council hired a security guard to make sure they were at our school, our law enforcement officer, to make sure they were at our school. There are things that we can do within the system to improve these schools, but we got to get involved. And this is a lot of the conversation I've been talking about is community involvement, community engagement. Yes, it's hard, but anything worth fighting for is going to be hard. And right now, what's worth fighting for is our children. And I see them every day. Again, I've got a 7-year-old. She's in gymnastics in the city. She does soccer in the city. She does a ton of things in the city. And we just have to look at, okay, how do we get involved? How do we intersect? How do we inject ourselves into this? Because that's where the change is going to occur.
Thank you. Excuse me, but the specific question was not the entire school system, but Ison Road Elementary.
Well, okay. So, did you want to say something else?
You could talk about Ison Road Elementary.
Well, I'm going to talk about schools, not just Ison, but I'm just going to say that smaller school districts, you can look up the top schools in the nation, the top schools in Georgia, and they are all small school districts. And the city of Sandy Springs schools will be 8,800 students or so, and 10 schools, unfortunately, because Spalding closed. But to answer your question about the timing, we hired Josh Belafonte, again, using our own money so far, and he has given us the legal opinion that we can get our own school district without changing the Constitution. And, you know, Rusty could talk about charter schools and the parents and everything, but that's a heavy lift for parents. It's not just, oh, we're going to start a charter school. You have to raise millions of dollars. You have to find a building. You don't just get the building. There's a lot that goes into starting a charter school, and it's at least a couple of years down the road. And last time I talked to them, it's a heavy lift. But one of the things, there's a couple ways that we can get to getting our own school district, and we're working on that right now. But one could be a municipal charter system. And I'm learning a lot about it. I don't know everything about it right now, but I do know that is something that the city can do. And I don't think that this should be on the backs of the parents that live in Sandy Springs to figure out the school systems. It's something that we should do and something that I intend to do, and I'm working on it right now.
Thank you.
Well, putting together, anytime you want to do something worthwhile, there's a lot of work involved. I don't deny that. But you can go out here tomorrow, the same thing that they're doing at Spalding Drive. I'm not sure you're able to hear me here. Okay, I knew you were being distracted there. I want to make sure you heard the answer. You can go out and start a charter school. And she talks about the amount of money that it takes. Guess what? The money from the county goes to that charter school. The money from the state goes to that charter school. You don't have to go out and raise money. Your tax dollars are already there poised to start that charter school. You got to have a little bit of work. You got to organize the parents. But if you care about your kids and then public education is important enough, there's enough parents here that'll get it done.
Thank you for the question. It's been really painful for those parents. I talk to them all the time, and I'm doing everything I can privately, to support their efforts because they want real solutions and they want them now. I grew up the child of a educator, a stepson of a public school, high school principal in the South Bronx. So we know, and I went through public education myself. Where possible, public education is really amazing. It's the best thing that probably happened to me growing up. I was in diverse schools with friends that are lifelong friends because they were neighborhood schools that to this day, I've got 12 guys, we still play fantasy football, people I've known for 45 years and that I graduated high school with. This is a tale of two cities. If you live in District 6, you can send your kids to private school, but you can send your kids to Hertz Ferry or High Point or some of the other schools, and you get to go to Riverwood High School. So what we have is just the new school system is not going to solve the underlying problems and challenges we have. Young families can't build roots in this city. It's too darn expensive. And until we find solutions to the underlying problems, this is going to continue whether it's our own school system or whether it's not. Listen, I supported it, I favor it, but we can't learn as mayor on the job. We've got a lot of things we can do. I can continue to lend support to Jody's group, and I will as mayor when the class group continues to do it. Just let me leave you with this. After Spalding Drive closed, the families that were redistricted, the homes that were redistricted to Woodland Elementary, their property values went down. You saw for sale signs go up in all of those neighborhoods. So terribly sad. And for the communities south of there that got redistricted to Hertz Ferry, what happened? Their property values all went up. The schools are so critical, and we have public and private schools that we as a city need to continue to elevate. It's a really good question and a really difficult problem. But until we address the underlying issues of housing and transportation and all of these things that are very complex, these issues are going to go on. And I really feel for you because it's a terrible position to be in.
Thank you, Andy. Ladies and gentlemen, I know there's more questions, but it's 8:30, and I promised everybody we'd get out of here by 9. So why don't we let the candidates mingle with the audience, asking personal questions, have some of the food that the diner has brought to us, and because if you don't eat it, Nick's going to serve it to me tomorrow. So thank you very much.